I now call on Ruth Maguire on behalf of the Equalities and Human Rights Committee for up to 7 minutes, please.
Presiding Officer, over the past few months, the Equalities and Human Rights Committee heard from women's organisations, academics, midwives, educators, police and other professionals. We heard how the UK government and agencies handle FGM and about the interaction between protection orders and asylum and immigration. But the most powerful evidence in our scrutiny of the Female Genital Mutilation Protection and Guidance Scotland Bill came from our engagement with organisations, meeting with survivors and frontline workers. They told us the difference protection orders might make and how Scotland can better deal with and prevent FGM. I'd like to share some of their experience with the Chamber today. As part of our engagement, we worked with the outreach and engagement teams in the Parliament on a digital storytelling project. Through a series of workshops, women affected by FGM created short films of their experiences. This meant they could tell their story, their way, in a supported and safe environment. These digital stories are powerful and difficult viewing, and I urge those who want a greater understanding of FGM and the impact on women to view them. But, Presiding Officer, when we're talking about FGM, I don't particularly like the word story. It suggests fiction, it suggests a neat narrative and a happy ending. And for many of the women we met and heard from, neither of those is true. The situations where FGM is a threat can be complicated and complex. And if FGM seems far removed from those of us in the Chamber today, these digital stories show us it's a very real thing for some women in Scotland. In our evidence, we heard concerns about racialisation. We recognise those concerns and asked the Scottish Government to be mindful of this as they develop the statutory guidance around FGM. But we know from our evidence there's no one culture or community that practices FGM. It's found around the world and it is always a fundamental violation of human rights. FGM contravenes articles in the European Convention on Human Rights relating to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment and other human rights treaties, including the Convention Against Torture, the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Presiding Officer, we are all entitled to the same human rights, but we recognise that when we try to realise them, we come from different starting points. For the women and girls facing the threat of FGM or dealing with the consequences of FGM, that starting point can seem a long way back. Through our work on human rights, we've learned the key to realising human rights is to take a person-centred approach. Put simply, as lawmakers, we must understand we all have different backgrounds and needs. For our laws to be good laws, we must put the individual at the centre and involve them in the process. The women who shared their digital stories want to be involved. They have lived experience and expertise. They must be at the centre of the work on this bill going forward. And what did women tell us they needed? At the Women's Support Project in Glasgow, Mary Fee and I heard from women about the struggles they faced finding suitable healthcare. One of the women said that she felt like she stood out in her hijab and was embarrassed to be there in the sexual health clinic. Women wanted to speak to someone who understood their experiences in a supportive environment. They wanted help and support to be available and not just through maternity services. We welcome the commitment from the Scottish Government to look at this further. At the multicultural family base in Leith, Oliver Mundell and I heard about a woman who'd come to Scotland with her children and husband on a temporary visa. During their time in Scotland, they had a daughter. The family were now due to return to their home country, where the girl would face FGM. The mother didn't want this to happen. Her options were to return to her home country, where her daughter would be cut, or she could seek asylum in Scotland. Her choice becomes less of a choice the more we understand what it actually means. As an asylum seeker, she would be in Scotland with her children, but without her husband. She feared she would be disowned by her family. She would be relocated from Edinburgh to Glasgow, far from the community and connections that she'd made. She would face poverty and uncertainty in the name of protecting her child. We were asked how a protection order would help this woman. Would it assist her asylum case? Would it give her time and space to assess her options? Would it provide housing for her and her children? Answers to these questions will be key to the success of this bill. As a committee, we agree with the general principles of the bill. We welcome anything that can provide additional protection to those facing the harm of FGM, and we heard from witnesses these protection orders would do that. But from women and communities, we heard their need for support. Legislation in isolation will not stop FGM in Scotland. For this bill to work, we must look at the support women need, and we should put them at the heart of developing it. That's how we ensure this bill makes meaningful change for women and girls. Presiding Officer, I'd like to finish with a plea from one of the digital stories created by all the women together as they were reflecting on their thoughts and hopes for the bill. They told us, "Do not doubt stories about FGM. They're real. We want our thoughts and our voices to be heard in our own words. We want change, and we hope our experience can help bring this change about." On behalf of the committee, I offer my sincere thanks to all those who gave evidence, shared their experience, and helped us form our conclusions. We believe this bill is an opportunity to create a new chapter in the story. We urge the Scottish Government to ensure this is truly person-centred legislation. As the Minister told us, nothing about us without us. Make these women the leading roles, not the supporting actors. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, the Equalities and Human Rights Committee supports the general principles of the Female Genital Mutilation, Protection and Guidance Scotland Bill.